Talk Therapy, the mental health show, is brought to you by St. Gregory's Recovery Center. St. Gregory's features individualized drug treatment programs with a personal and holistic approach. Enjoy private counseling in small groups attended by caring staff in beautiful and serene locales. St. Gregory's is evidence-based rehabilitation. Most insurance is accepted. Don't go it alone. Enjoy a high success rate with St. Gregory's Recovery Centers. St. Greg's, it's where science meets recovery. stgregory.com.
For too long, Iowans with mental illness have suffered in silence. No longer. St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show, adds a clear voice to the discussion that many Iowans face every day. Our program brings to the airwaves the experts, doctors, therapists who understand the unique challenges Iowans face. I'm Nick Learhoff. Join me and Scott Casper from 9 to 10 a.m. Saturday mornings on Iowa's Hope, 9:40 a.m. and online at talktherapytmhs.com. Now let's get on with the show.
Hello again, everybody. It is Scott Casper along with my buddy Nick, inviting you to join us today as we discuss the many mental health issues that Iowans face each and every day. This is St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show, from the Five Talents Wealth Management Studios here on Hope 940. In future weeks, we'll take a look at different mental health issues and bring to the show guests that may be able to explain better than we what you may be facing and where you can turn. And who knows, you may hear something or someone that has a situation just like you. This week, we'll take a general overview of where Iowa sits in terms of services provided to its residents and where we're going. And to be honest, our state has not been in the best position to assist its residents. That position has changed. And recently, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds announced that the state would allocate $50 million in federal funds through the CARES Act to be invested in Iowa's mental health care system. Of the $50 million, $30 million will be directed to mental health and disability services, the service regions, to support ongoing adult and children's mental health services, including covering the increased need for services due to the stressors and isolation associated with COVID-19. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. All right. And that's a very serious topic, by the way. And if you want to see something that is a blanket description of what Iowans are going through, it's COVID-19. It's huge, the impact it's having. And can we get past it? We're not going to be able to discuss with any candor, how to get around having COVID-19 or suffering from it once afflicted. But I believe we'll be able to talk to, in general terms, especially with our experts, how to deal with the side effects of COVID-19. And that is, as I mentioned, isolationism, fear. The fear is incredible, especially with a certain segment of our audience, the aged. They are in many ways continuing to live, and even more so today. They are living in fear, in silence. They have no guests, no ability to have guests in many instances. Once in a while, a nurse may stop by. But I can't tell you how important phone calls are right now to somebody you think may be alone or somebody that you know is alone. And a phone call would be huge. Reach out to anybody and everybody and just offer an ear, offer a conversation about something normal and not COVID-19. Okay, that may be the watchword of the summer of 2020, but it doesn't have to be. It can still be about life, and fear can be set aside and channeled in its correct way. Would you agree with that, Nick?
Absolutely. I mean, with all the different technology and things going on, and it's 2020, so being able to connect with folks through video chats, through different avenues that allow people to still engage, even though they may be separated. And I think that when you talk about isolation, you talk about the fear of loss of employment, and all the different things that are coming along with COVID-19, it creates this anxiety. And I mean, we've seen that, at the house, at the facility at St. Gregory's, where we get people calling in who, they had a great game plan for their sobriety and their recovery, and then COVID-19 came in like a hurricane. And, it was just hard for them to deal and cope.
I'm having a hard time. Yeah. I'm having a hard time blaming the administration or Congress, although they seem to want to blame each other. I'm having a hard time placing blame on anybody in Washington because it seems as if the media wants us to believe that it's their fault, that they invented COVID in many ways. That's what they want you to believe.
Sure.
One point in fact, at the very beginning, they were as blind as most of us are, even today. So we have to put things in perspective. In this show, we'll struggle to do it without being political. I don't believe that's a place. I don't think politics will have a place in this program. Both sides, Republican and Democrat and others, will be afforded a voice, if you will, in what we're dealing with head on, and that's the mental health crisis in the state of Iowa. In many categories, by the way, when dealing with mental health, Iowa is firmly in 50th place. Now, nothing against the folks in Mississippi or Louisiana, but some of the less populated states in the warm belt region of the United States have always populated 48th, 49th, or 50th place. Iowa should always be leading in the services it provides its residents. And I know, Nick, you agreed to partner with me on this program because you have the same type of belief.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you know, we see it from a substance abuse standpoint, but overall, I mean, you talk about substance abuse and mental illness. I mean, it kind of comes back to what comes first, the chicken or the egg. You know, is the mental health illness driving the substance abuse? Is the substance abuse driving the mental illness? And so when you talk about the services in the state, there isn't enough.
Right.
And from a treatment standpoint, from a provider standpoint, the different services for folks that are in crisis. And so it's really been a shame how that's kind of planned out. But it sounds like with some of the upcoming legislation that some of those things are going to be changing.
Yeah, it's the allocation of funds. That's been huge. Governor Branstad did not leave the state of Iowa in good shape. I got to tell you, Iowa is in a state of distress. And recently it was announced by the governor that the state would allocate $50 million in federal funds through the CARES Act. Well, that's part one. There is a part two. Our guests on the program today include Peggy Huppert from NAMI, and NAMI is the National Association for Mental Illness. But we'll start the discussion and our program with somebody I have a great deal of respect for because she fights for Iowans and communities every day. And she's kind of a neighbor of mine, just probably, 8-9 blocks away in the community we know as Beaverdale in the central part of the city of Des Moines. She joins us now. Does Marty Anderson. Good morning, Marty. How are you?
Good morning. I am doing well.
Marty, first of all, welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking the opportunity to join us. And we're struggling with some audio here in the studio. I'm not hearing her in my headphones as much as I'd like to, but perhaps I can still hear the studio speakers. So we'll struggle along. And Marty, forgive me if I repeat any question, but I want to make sure you are hearing us and we're hearing you. So again, welcome. You represent Iowa House District 26. Is that correct?
Nope. It's Iowa House District 36.
36.
Yeah. You're just off by a number.
What's a number?
Yeah, what's the number? It's the northwest side of Des Moines.
There you go, northwest
so
side.
So it includes the Merle Hay, Lower Beaver, and Beaverdale neighborhoods.
Love it.
As well as a little bit of Drake and a little bit of Walnut Woods.
But in many ways,
Walnut Hill. I'm sorry.
Walnut Hill. But in many ways, you are representing the hopes and dreams of Iowans in general. You just happen to be the representative from District 36. So you're a former social worker or always a social worker?
Once a social worker, always a social worker.
Some of the hardest working people in show business, as it were. It's interesting to know that social work has become such an important part. That which you already knew, but most people didn't say, oh, social worker, what an important part of our community. My golly, today, right now, with COVID-19 and its attendant fears and everything that goes along with it, social workers have become so important publicly. And I got to believe in some ways that's a two-edged sword, right?
Of course it is. You know, it's really a hard-working, as you say, and good profession. And I think most people don't know how broad the profession is. We are school social workers, and we are hospital social workers, and we work in the courts. It's important work. 70%, something like that, of the mental health services in Iowa are provided by social workers.
Wow, I didn't know it was that much. Did you, Nick?
No, I didn't realize it was that much.
That's huge.
Yeah,
we need to get together a whole group of social workers and address them as a whole.
Yeah, we have an association called the National Association of Social Workers, or NASW, as people know us. And people don't really connect us to a lot of things that we do, but we are there's industrial social workers who work in industry.
I didn't think about that.
Help with planning and help. There's several things that social workers do: therapy, community organizing, administration. A lot of our nonprofit associations, like the Heart Association or the Diabetes Association, might be led by social workers, because we're trained to organize and to do social change agency.
What?
Yeah.
Marty Anderson, our guest. She's the representative from Iowa House District 36, but representing, really, in my estimation anyway, the people of the state of Iowa. You are there. You are at the hearth of the fire, as it were. I mean, you are really helping to direct what is now being put into action across the state. We have been woefully behind in the services provided. We're going to be talking more about that on the other side of the break. And Marty, we hope that you'll agree to stick through the break. It'll be a short one, but when we come back, we'll have more conversation about what has happened recently and what kind of monies are being allocated, where the money is going, and what you see as the impact of the allocation of those funds, because I got to believe even at $101 million is my total. The way I'm not good at math, but I believe that's the correct number in total. But that's a drop in the bucket to what the state actually needs, because we got a lot of ground to make up, yeah?
You bet we do.
So stick through the break, everybody. Live from the Five Talents Wealth Management Studios, you're listening to St. Gregory's Mental Health Show. It's called Talk Therapy, and we'll be back after this short timeout. Stay by.
Stay tuned. There's more with Nick Learhoff and Scott Casper right here on Iowa's 940 for St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the Mental Health Show. Iowa, we're listening.
My dad went to AA once, decided it wasn't for him, and refused to ever go back. He was stubborn and confident that he was just okay. But he wasn't okay, and our family was suffering. So we had an intervention for him, and he agreed to go to St. Gregory Recovery Center. There, he learned how to deal with his addiction the way he needed. Insurance covered our costs, and he has been sober now for over 4 years. Learn more at relevantradio.com/recovery.
All right, welcome back to Talk Therapy, the Mental Health Show. He's Nick Learhoff. I'm Scott Casper. Our guest on the Newsmaker Hotline from the Five Talents Wealth Management Studios is Representative Marty Anderson from the Iowa House District 36. Marty, welcome back.
Welcome. I'm glad.
And by the way, this is a dream of mine, and it's come to fruition. And I hope we serve in the future, starting today, as a benefit to this state of Iowa and the residents, because I have a great affection for them, as I know you do, Marty, as well.
Yes, Iowans are fabulous.
All right, I promised a breakdown. Where do we sit as a state, and what do you believe the recent legislation, what kind of impact will that recent legislation have on the citizens of the state?
Well, from the CARES Act, we received $51 million in June, and so the legislature had an opportunity to have a hand in how that was distributed. $1 million of that will go to food relief, or went to food relief probably already, but And then the other $50 million would go to community-based services, mental health, substance abuse programs.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And then in July, we received another CARES Act appropriation from the federal government of $50 million, and the governor will distribute that. And she's planned to send $50 million of that to our mental health centers for their operation and their services,
etc. Okay.
And then $30 million to the regions. Oh, wait a minute, I got that backwards. I'm very sorry. $30 million of it goes to the regions for mental health care.
Okay.
We have 14 regions in Iowa that provide the mental health care. Our region is Polk County because we have such a heavy population. We only have one county in our region, but many regions are 4 to 10 counties.
Wow.
Yeah, and then 20 million of that will go to mental health and substance abuse providers.
We have so much ground to cover, and I know an hour is never enough. You think it is when you build a program, but when you get to the end of an hour, you go, "Oh my goodness sakes, I forgot to talk about this. I forgot to talk about this."
Yeah.
Marty, will you accept from us the invitation to join us again? Because what we want to do is we wanted to take and perhaps some focused looks at what social workers are doing, what they're dealing with today, the dangers in being a social worker. There are dangers,
Yes, there are.
especially and even more so today with COVID-19. And I want to go on record in my belief. Okay, my belief of COVID-19 is everybody will get it. It's just a matter of when, right? I think that's about right. And I'm glad. Thank you, Marty, for agreeing. But Marty, if people want to be in touch with you, how best for them to be able to do that?
They can send me an email at marty.anderson@legis, short for legislature.
Okay.
.gov. No, wait a minute. legis.iowa.gov.
.gov. There you go. Got to put Iowa in there.
Yeah.
Iowa's first in my book.
Oh, mine too.
I love this state. It's love
a fabulous
this
state.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
We are number one. I don't care what some of the polls say. And by the way, those polls that say Iowa's a perfect place to live, I want those people to stop saying it because too many people are moving here from California. I don't want everything to be ruined.
Yeah. Right. Too funny.
It's like, here's the deal. Take your shoes off at the door. My carpeting is brand new. Okay? Stop dirtying up my carpeting. Okay. Marty, great talking with you. I will join up with you again shortly to discuss future appearances on the shows and things that you want to talk about. So take that invitation if you would, and we'll welcome you back when you want to come back.
Okay, that sounds great.
Marty Anderson, our friend, and certainly the people of House District 36 are lucky to have her. She was in a very contentious battle for the position, and I tell you what, everybody voted for the right reasons, then they got a great one of Marty Anderson. So thank you, Marty.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marty. Appreciate your leadership.
All right, so we've talked with Marty Anderson in brief about where we are and what we're doing. We'll get into a little bit more of what the state of Iowa is doing. And from a national perspective, we're going to be joined by the Iowa Executive Director of the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and I'm talking about Peggy Huppert. And I want to make sure when we get her on the phone, I want her to say her last name slowly, because you could say Huppert or Huppert, and we'll see what Peggy has to say. This program brought to you in part by our friends at Mullet's Restaurant. Looking for the best breakfast place in Des Moines? You'll love Mullet's famous breakfast menu. Mullet's, well, it's an American riverside bar and grill with a 2-level patio affording great views of downtown. Delivery orders are available through DoorDash, and on the walls there at Mullet's, you'll enjoy all your favorite sports heroes like my buddy Dan Gable. You never know who you'll run into at Mullet's, celebrating all things about the hairstyle that's business in the front and party in the back. 1300 Southeast 1st on Des Moines' South Side. Call ahead for reservations, especially more so now than ever before. Call ahead for those reservations, 244-1443. Our producer, Danny Bishop, in studio. He's Nick Learhoff. I'm Scott Casper. And as it sounds like we're rushing, we got a lot to say, Nick.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
This program brought to you by our friends at St. Gregory's. Now, let's go to our next guest. She is the Executive Director of the National Alliance of Mental Illness Iowa Chapter, if that is the correct description. Let's go to Peggy. Peggy, how are you?
I'm fine, Scott.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Here's the challenge. Say your last name for everybody, because I've heard it 3 different ways, and I don't want you to hear what I've heard. Tell everybody your last name.
It's Huppert.
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 Okay, so Marty was right. Marty Anderson was on just moments ago, and I know you know her, not just as a social worker, but a representative of the folks of the state of Iowa. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking the time. You and I have talked several times on the phone, never met in person, but that doesn't take away from our desire to be helpful to the citizens of the state of Iowa. And we will have a short time out here on our way to the top of the hour, but I do want to ask you, were you pleased with the recent allocation of monies through the CARES Act and other funds that are being directed now by the state to mental illness?
Well, I'm definitely pleased with the allocation of federal funds by the governor. $30 million to the regional mental health and disability system, and another $20 million directly to Medicaid providers who have suffered the consequences of dealing with the pandemic. The only caution is this is one-time money. It has to be spent by the end of the year.
Wow!
And it's not replaceable. So it really can't be used to start anything.
Can we file for an extension?
No.
As far as use goes?
The federal government might decide to give us more, or they might not. So this money is one-time money.
Is that like applying for a grant, Peggy? I mean, if the federal government has X number of dollars set aside, how does Iowa get its fair share?
It's population-based.
Okay.
So Iowa got a lot of money and the state could decide how it was going to distribute it. There were some general parameters and guidelines, but this specifically was decision of the governor because she recognized that the legislature did not come through with a funding plan for mental health as they had promised to do.
I see.
So this was her way of trying to fill the gap, at least for this fiscal year.
Well, and to be fair to the governor and to the legislators, if you go back 5, 10, 15 years, Iowa began the decline into the morass that was the mental illness or the mental health institutions and the mental health system in the state of Iowa. And it was not any better when Terry Branstad left to take the position in China as afforded to him by the President of the United States. So we have to look at what she was given and what the legislators were given as far as a grounding and a footing. So we've got a lot of ground to make up. Would you say that's fair? We do.
It's been a long time coming to this bad place. So, we have to, there's some big things to work out. And we have made some great strides in the policy area over the last 2 years. The legislature has passed some significant policy bills, and that's great. But now they have to come to grips with how to fund it.
Now, people like Marty Anderson and her fellow legislators, whether in the House or the Senate, have an ability to affect not just today, and in many ways, they could be a little bit late to the party, Nick, as far as being able to affect today. But they have the ability to affect the future for the citizens of the state of Iowa and even those on the border and bleeding into other states, as it were, because, we are such a mobile society in this day and age. And I, for one, I'm intrigued, number one. I'm thankful, very grateful.
Absolutely.
For the monies allocated. But the recognition is perhaps even more important because recognizing a problem is the first step, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
All right. So our guest is just a terrific representative for the state. She represents each and every one of you through the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Peggy, the monies, the allocation of monies and things like that, we want to talk to you about the benefit you see, at least in these opening stages. And the money has to be used by the end of the year. I get that. But we want to talk to you about what those benefits might be, would be, could be in the next few minutes. But we have to take a quick time out, so stand by. More with our guest, Peggy Huppert, and you on this program. This is St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show from the Five Talents Wealth Management Studios. Stand by.
Stay tuned. There's more with Nick Learhoff and Scott Casper right here on Iowa's 940 for St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. Iowa, we're listening.
I can't say enough about the staff at St. Gregory's, who seem especially gifted to work in this field. They were so helpful and encouraging and will always have my gratitude. I made some very good new friends, a couple of whom I probably would not have made it through those beginning days without. Everyone and the programs at St. Gregory's seemed designed and placed in my life by God's perfect plan.
RelevantRadio.com/St. Gregory. RelevantRadio.com/St. Gregory.
All right, welcome back to Talk Therapy, the mental health show. He's Nick Learhoff. I'm Scott Casper. Nick, it's a rush to the end of the hour, if only because the time seems to go by so quickly, yeah?
It's flown. It's flown.
Peggy Huppert is joining us. I know. I'm thinking about it too much. All right, Peggy, Executive Director of the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Peggy, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we talk about, and Marty addressed this as well, Marty Anderson addressed this as well, and that is 50 and 51 million, collectively $101 million worth of money is being allocated. But where do you see the money going that can have the most immediate impact? And further, how will this allocation, the recent allocation for these monies, be beneficial to the citizens of the state of Iowa?
Well, a few ways. One is we have a real workforce problem in Iowa, with especially across the board in healthcare, but especially in mental health and addiction services. We don't have enough clinicians. We don't have enough psychiatrists, or really any level of clinician. So, if this money can help pay providers more, so they can attract more of a workforce,
I didn't even think about
this. Certainly beneficial.
Yeah.
The other area that I see is the development of telehealth. There's been a real boom with that's been a silver lining of the pandemic.
Wow.
Has been the very rapid development of telehealth, especially for mental health and addiction services, because the insurers are paying the same amount for in-person versus telehealth visits, and they've loosened the restrictions on the platforms to use. So many more people have been able to take advantage of it. And in a rural state with a lack of providers, that is key. So I'm hoping those are two areas that will see the benefit of this money.
I am. See, I did not know that, and I wasn't even putting two and two together, Nick. This is huge for the rural folks out there that would have to drive 100 or more miles to see somebody for an hour or two, when they can get on the phone and be subsidized by their insurance companies and by state programs that could help defray the costs of seeking out the type of help that they need. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Peggy.
I'm sorry. I was going to say it also cuts way down on no-shows, and that's key. Because if it's certainly the case really for any chronic illness. Mm-hmm. If people keep their appointments and they adhere to the regimen and the recommendations of their providers, they're much more likely to stay healthy and stay out of the hospital and stay out of the emergency department, which is expensive.
Peggy.
So it also saves money.
All right, so I get your point. Keep your appointments, people. But, all right, keep your appointments. My father made that abundantly clear to me growing up. You always show up 10 minutes before for work or whatever. And, gosh, you know what? Life is work, right? Showing up, being with somebody who actually cares. Just show up. Other people will be happy to help you. And that's, in large part, the importance of an association, an alliance, if you will, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. Iowa's Executive Director, Peggy Huppert, has been our guest. And Peggy, I want to invite you at this point to tell folks, in brief, what they can expect from NAMI. Some people say NAMI, I say NAMI.
It's NAMI.
Yeah.
You got it right.
Thank you.
And we're a nationwide, we're the largest and oldest nonprofit dedicated to issues around mental health. We're in all 50 states. Here in Iowa, we have 13 local affiliates. I'm with the state chapter. We offer a lot of programs and support for people who live with serious mental illness as well as their loved ones. So we have classes, we have support groups, we have presentations, we have a resource line. Anyone who needs any kind of help related to mental health or addiction can call us, and we're there to point them in the right direction. So we work with the prison system. We work with homeless populations. We do a lot. We're the statewide organization, and we're here for anyone who needs our help.
Millions of Americans are affected and afflicted. It's your opportunity to be in touch with the pros and the people that care. Peggy Huppert has been our guest, Executive Director here in the state of Iowa, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. She's looking, as we are, to make Iowa a better place to live through the services provided. The recognition is so important. If you think you might have a health issue, a mental health issue, we want to invite you to call them, to get online. The website, Peggy, that people can go to initially is?
NAMIiowa.org.
And that's spelled out, correct? I-O-W-A. You know,
NAMI, Iowa, right. NAMI, I-A. NAMIiowa.org. It's Iowa spelled out.
Okay. It makes me want to sing the song. Our state fair is a great state fair. Is a state fair. You know, I'm the biggest rah-rah for the state of Iowa. The people in the state of Iowa deserve the best. And Peggy, you're one of the reasons why they can expect a better future, a brighter future. We're going to look forward to your return. I know there are topics that you want us to address, and by golly, we want to be along and help you get and put a finer point on various topics, and hopefully we can raise awareness. And if this program can do one thing, and that's to help one person seek out the light, and whether it's sobriety or how you deal as a parent with a autistic child, doesn't matter. There's certain stressors out there, and the big one right now, of course, COVID-19. I don't see that going away anytime soon. But Peggy,
no.
We want to know that you'll be with us in the future to help address the topics that are important to the citizens of the state of Iowa. And we thank you for joining us on our Newsmaker line today.
Absolutely. I look forward to future discussions. I also want to quickly share our phone number for people who might want to call us to get help. It's 515-254-0417.
254-0417?
Right.
0417. I've got it written down. And folks, you can always call us here at the Des Moines Radio Group and the home base of this program at 280-1350. If you didn't get that number, they'll have it at the switchboard. Talk to Lori or Danny at the switchboard. They'll be happy to help you. 280-1350. Peggy, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Best to everybody on your team.
You bet. Thank you, Scott.
You betcha.
Thank you, Peggy.
You know, she's terrific. And
wonderful.
We have talked to two women who are and professionals, by the way, that are so in tune and in touch with Iowans. This is where we wanted the show to go, and we kick it off with a bang, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you talk about their place and the things that they're able to help out within the community, and kind of like we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, you know, if one person can seek help, receive services, and do the things that they need to do to be able to change their life and the family around them, it can affect communities. And so it's wonderful.
All right, on our way to break, let's do it. We're going to tell you that this program is brought to you in part by our friends at 5 Talents Financial Management Group. Don Boyd, their leader over there. Today's economy presents certain challenges and stressors, as we mentioned just moments ago. Along with those challenges, by the way, comes opportunities. So potential rewards are for those who can identify long-term trends. You don't need to go it alone. Don Boyd and his team of financial experts at 5 Talents Financial Management Group can help you navigate today's economy. And yeah, it can get stormy indeed. So whether you're facing retirement, as so many of you are, or looking to better understand certain investment and ideas, they can help. 5 Talents Financial Management is their first priority is you and your overall financial success. They want to learn more about your personal priorities and find out why and tell you why their overall financial success is based on your success. They want to learn more about your personal situation, help you identify your dreams and goals, and understand your tolerance for risk. Long-term relationships that encourage open and honest communication are the cornerstone of their foundation of success, and they will be for you as well. Look for them online at FTFMG 5 Talents Financial Management Group. So FTFMG.com. Again, that's FTFMG.com, or call them at 223-7487. That's 5 Talents Financial Management Group.
Stay tuned. There's more with Nick Learhoff and Scott Casper right here on Iowa's 940 for St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. Iowa, we're listening.
I came to St. Gregory very reluctantly at my all-time worst, physically, emotionally, and mentally. But I gave my best effort to these new things in my life as I saw hope in this complete approach. I'm at the point now that I feel my strongest and best ever, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I felt quite certain God was orchestrating everything.
St. Gregory Recovery Center. Recovery starts here. RelevantRadio.com/St. Gregory.
All right, welcome back to the show. It is St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. Iowa, we are listening, and we're glad you are joining us and listening to what we have to say. You can always be in touch with us through our website. And we want to make sure that you know that this is a show that does not come with any kind of a preconceived idea other than a sincere desire to help fellow Iowans. We know that there is a mental health crisis in the state of Iowa. And one of those areas, Nick Learhoff, is the mental illness that is part and parcel to things like alcoholism, addiction in all forms. And it's not just what you think, right? I mean, addiction comes in many different forms.
Absolutely. I mean, really anything can be addictive, people can get addicted to. So, it all comes from substances. It can be as easy as caffeine.
Coffee, right?
Absolutely. Obviously nicotine within, cigarettes as well, but even coffee within and energy drinks and the market that has become energy drinks from a standpoint of, your Red Bulls and all the different things that people start using to keep themselves up and have that stimulant to be able to get through their workday or get all the laundry done and be able to cross those to-dos off. So but even back further a little bit, I mean, you talk about, pornography, you talk about sex addictions, and some of that,
wow.
You talk about sex addictions have kind of been in the news with different, sports stars and things and different cases that have kind of come up. But it kind of comes back to the struggle of those underlying issues. So when we talk about mental health and the big reason why, we wanted to be a part of the show and make this show go is to be able to bring that light, within the state of Iowa about underlying mental health issues, anxiety, depression, and being able to help put things out there on the air,
right?
To help folks who maybe are struggling.
Pull back the drape, as it were, to
absolutely.
Mental illness.
When you talk about the substances from the standpoint of like St. Gregory's, doing residential substance abuse treatment, having a 35-day program where people take a time out of their lives and just really try to circle the wagons and find out or figure out what those root causes are for them. What are those issues within their life that are causing them to want to numb, causing them to want to turn to a substance to get through struggling relationship, to get through a job that they have to do to provide for their family, but they're just miserable doing it.
And so and I want to focus on something you just said. Let's say you're having trouble in a relationship. In that relationship, you turn to a substance for some kind of a panacea, if you will, a treatment, self-induced, by the way, something that you believe will help. And then all of a sudden, guess what? You're caught in the web of what I call insanity, because that's exactly what that is. It's feeding oneself for a perceived goal, and you never really get it. I mean, you never really solve that problem, and it only becomes more problematic as it's almost like a regeneration. It gets worse and worse and worse.
It's absolutely, it's a cycle, and it's this downward spiral that people find themselves in. They initially turn to the substance because it helps them out one time. So, like example, somebody who has social anxiety, they maybe have a drink to get through a social situation. That worked really well. Okay, maybe that worked really well, but maybe have another one. And then maybe 2 doesn't cut it, so then it turns to 4, then 4 turns to 8. Next thing you know, they become dependent on the substance just to function. Same thing with opiates. When people start using opiate or a painkiller, maybe they got in a car accident or fell and broke an arm or a hip or something. And so they get prescribed opiates, and it helps kind of take the pain away, and it works. Well, then,
so you become reliant.
Yeah, your body builds up a tolerance to it, and then next thing you know, you need 2, and then you need 4, and then you need 8, and then you start building up a dependence on it. And like with opiates, it actually will create pain in the receptors, and so it's just like with self-feeding, trap that people kind of get themselves in.
That's it. It's a trap,
and
it's a mental trap, because your brain is telling you one thing when in fact it's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
It's not okay, and your brain is suffering.
Well, it kind of comes back to the origins of how we, like St. Gregory's, will treat and work with somebody. It's when I say underlying issues, it could be like multiple variables of different things with different strengths within the individual. So all the different variables in a person's life that cause them to turn to a substance, and then they get caught up in that trap. They get caught up in that cycle, that downward spiral, and then it just creates disruption in all areas of their life. And then so, when we talk about the proper treatment of somebody who's struggling with substances, we're going to talk about family and relationships. We're going to talk about social structure, or sober social structure, like the different social groups that you surround yourself with and people with. We're going to talk about your job and your financials, and we're going to talk about just your thought processes and how you cope with different things going on in your life. Because ultimately, if you turn to a substance because you're struggling with job, family, relationships, health in general, we have to be able to create healthy alternatives, right, that are going to work for that individual to be able to move them in that positive direction and really create a life that they get excited about. Yeah. A life that if they were struggling with 4 out of 5 of those things, how do we fix those things, resolve those issues, build a way to overcome those struggles? I mean, and it's kind of like we talked about at the beginning of the show. It's not a matter of if life is going to be difficult for somebody down the road, especially if they're struggling with an addictive personality or an addiction or alcoholism. It's when. So right. How are we going to deal with these situations when they come up? So if somebody's struggling with anxiety, what are the things that are causing that anxiety? What are the things that can help you? They talk about exercise, right? Exercise and nutrition. If somebody incorporates, half hour a day of just moderate activity, it can be as effective as a medication.
Well, your body produces a natural endorphins, I should say. And the brain welcomes that. I mean, it craves it. And Absolutely. That's not a bad addiction, is it? I mean, getting out there and exercising.
People talk about like a runner's high, at a certain sense. When you get out and you exercise, not only do you get those natural feel-good endorphins, right, that if you are very, very sedentary, you're just not going to experience. But you also have what it can do for self-confidence.
Oh, wow.
self-efficacy, your body image, and just how you feel. And most people, when you talk about exercise in general, or just that struggle of like, okay, this is a change I want to make within myself.
Right.
They talk about the hardest part is getting to the gym. The hardest part is getting to a place where they're going to start being active and doing things. And we always talk about with St. Gregory's, it's just like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, okay, you have to be on the treadmill for an hour a day. You have to go hit the weights for an hour a day. It's what are those things that you can do in your life with the relationships around you to be active, to have fun while being sober, and enjoy life, and build those relationships around you. So being able to incorporate those social structures within that, and being healthy, and practicing good sleep hygiene and proper hydration, and eating well, because as we know, if we don't feel good physically, it's very, very hard to feel good mentally. And so when you talk about somebody who's withdrawing, or somebody who is in that constant cycle of grief or shame over maybe their use or things that they've done while they were using, it's hard to break that cycle, and it's just self-feeding.
Okay, so you just break that cycle of self-feeding. I get that. But what you just said is the shame, okay? Mm-hmm. Because what you're doing, that behavior, that, let's say, cocaine, okay? Mm-hmm. It's wrong, right? It's wrong for your body. Societally, it's wrong, correct? Yeah. But you continue to do that which you're not supposed to do, because that's when that addiction is taking over, but you don't know how to respond to it. You don't know what the answers are. And it's more than just changing your playmates and playgrounds, to use treatment talk.
Right.
We've come so far since the early 80s, when cocaine reared its ugly head yet again, because cocaine's been around for a while. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just something that started at Studio 54 in New York on Thursdays and Friday nights. No.
Right.
This has been pervasive across royalty in the days of old, throughout Europe, South America, etc. Cocaine's been around for a while. And they used it for a variety of purposes, and that was to increase their stamina and ability to participate in the depravities of then their lives. And we're seeing that in many different ways. I want to switch gears for a minute. I want to talk just for a moment about loneliness that has to do with COVID-19. COVID-19 is creating an incredible opportunity for loneliness, and the elderly they're susceptible in a big way to COVID-19 and the disaster that lies on the other end of the affliction. So I would ask you that, incumbent with their treatment, and they know what they've been doing in the past, it only is amplified today, and that is alcohol. I mean, the elderly are no different than others, because now they're alone, and they self-medicate because of that loneliness. Alcohol sales are through the roof across the country.
Yeah, I think I heard it was like at one point up 240%.
That's amazing.
Which is it's incredible. But I mean, you talk about, the side effects of COVID, not only from a financial standpoint, but like you talk about isolation. People who, especially maybe if they've struggled with substances in the past, isolation is one of their biggest enemies. They need that social structure around them. They need that interaction with others, because they start getting that self-defeating cycle, that trap, if you will. And then
self-esteem goes down.
Self-esteem goes down.
Self-value, self-worth, all of everything that's incumbent upon you being a positive person with a clear mind and clear intent, everything else goes away. Mm-hmm. I mean, legitimately, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters except chasing that, the alcohol or whatever that is providing, or drug, or the addictive, the search. That, I guess, you mentioned sexual addiction. One is never enough, and what is too much? I don't know that answer is really. There's no answer about what is too much, But Danny Bishop had something about, let's go to Danny. Danny, our producer. Danny, you had a question.
Gentlemen, I'm delighted to be a part of this program. And I'm curious because we've seen trends across the nation, not just Des Moines, but New York City, L.A. We've seen segments on national programs about how the criminal justice system unfortunately gets involved in both mental illness and addiction. We would like to take care of this through the healthcare bucket or the medical services bucket, but a lot of times law enforcement has to get involved because that's all that's left in some communities. Is there any, what kinds of things are being done to try to shift that?
There was at one point, excuse me, in Des Moines here, I know they had started a program at one point, Bridges of Iowa, who had a jail diversion program. So people would get booked for, substances, DUIs or, having substances on them or being intoxicated and those things. And having somebody in the jail system to be able to determine if that person had an actual substance abuse issue and how much of it was like a mental health issue, and being able to instead of putting them back in general population and right back into a system where more times than not they're going to be taught things that are more negative and counterproductive to their overall development.
Self-defeating.
Yeah. Being able to put them into a program that helps teach them the positive ways to deal with whatever mental illness maybe they're struggling with, and that's why they turn to substances in the first place. And so I don't know if there's any other programs upcoming within that. Some of that money that we would be seeing from the legislation that's coming out, would be highly beneficial to be placed in some of those areas as well, I feel. But I think it was Peggy talked about how some of that money is going to be going to substance abuse treatment services. There's a handful, maybe a dozen or so residential treatment facilities outside of ours. And you talk about the stat that it was 1 out of 4, maybe even be 1 out of 3 people struggle with substances or know somebody who has or who does.
On Hope 940 KP, I don't want to cut you off, Nick, but time is drawing near, and that is the end of hour 1 of the very first program. That is the Talk Therapy Show. And I do want to thank our producer, Danny Bishop. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. Our guest, NAMI's Executive Director, Peggy Huppert, and Iowa House Representative Marty Anderson for accepting the invitation to guest on our program. Nick, it's been a pleasure. We're only just touching on the surface of everything that I hope, and I know you join me in this hope.
Absolutely.
And that is that this program will have an effect on Iowans. So I want to thank you for listening. I want to remind you of these numbers. 1 in 5 Americans has a mental health condition. 12.8 million adults live with a severe mental illness. Does that describe you? Do you think it describes you? If it does, I want you to get online to NAMI.org and find out what the policies and programs are with NAMI. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness. That's just one resource we're going to be giving you. If you think you have a problem with addiction or substance abuse, I want you to give our friends at St. Gregory's a call. The recovery centers are there for you. It's not always easy to get in, but I'll tell you what, the services, once you get there, are phenomenal. How can they find out more about St. Gregory?
So you can go to stgregoryctr.com. That's stgregoryctr.com, or you can call 888-778-5833.
On behalf of my co-host Nick Learhoff, I'm Scott Casper. Iowa, we're listening, and so are you.